The other problem that we have is that even though we are making some progress in lowering juvenile delinquency is still a very big problem. It's very pervasive. It happens all over the country. And it can range from petty small things like mischief, like maybe spray painting on walls or stealing somebody's bicycle or things like that. But it can also involve really serious crimes like robbery, where a little old lady's get knocked over and their purse gets stolen, or even worse things like drugs and murder and things like that, where there is a lot of gang involvement, and so these are major problems. One of the things that we want to consider as we look through this is the age-old thing that I bring up all the time, and that is what works. What really works in lowering juvenile delinquency. And so I want to talk a little bit about some things that don't work, and one of them is DARE. You may have been in a class where there was a DARE program where a visitor from the police department came in and maybe showed you some marijuana and talked a little bit about what causes all these drug programs and problems, and what we found is that it's been an abysmal failure over a period of many years, and it's been a waste of over $60 billion. And the reason for that is it's just not founded on good research and what works. What works in education, is that you go in a classroom, you have a teacher consistently, you get to know the teacher, you develop trust with the teacher, and you learn things from the teacher. And this goes on for like a whole year. Every day of every school day, you're with that same teacher. So when you see a police officer once every 3 or 4 months, it's just not a very worthwhile program. It's really more of a novelty. And so some other things that they've tried are the boot camps. We've talked about those. Boot camps can be actually more dangerous. They can actually cause more crime than they can stop, because all it really does is basically cause people to get involved in physical fitness programs. It doesn't change their mind. It doesn't change their thinking. So they can just run faster and jump higher as they go around committing delinquent acts. Another thing is the Scared Straight program. We still see that sometimes on cable television. This has been really a poor thing. It fits under the area of what we call deterrence, and in deterrence we have specific and general deterrence. So specific deterrence means one person is put in a jail cell and hopefully they will be persuaded not to commit crimes. Well, that may work for a short term, but over time people forget, the intensity of that situation wears off. And so once again, it's something that just doesn't seem to work. And so what really does work? What works? Well, what we found that works are prevention programs and early interventions. And so 2 of those programs are like the Head Start program and also a visitation program where home nurses come in the home when mother is pregnant, and then when there's a very young baby, and they work with the baby until early childhood. So maybe they visit once a week and they talk to them about keeping the baby safe and clean and avoiding certain diseases and different things like that. So it's a kind of a situation where the focus is on the broader interests, like in the case of Head Start, in learning different things, going to a museum, this and that, basically, just odd little things that people learn on a daily basis. But what ends up happening is it prevents crime because it gets the child interested in other things, useful things like kindness that you learn by watching maybe a film about someone that was kind to another person. It demonstrates this kindness. And if you see that again and again and again at a very early age, then by being kind, you wouldn't want to hurt the other person. You wouldn't want to steal their property, for example. Reminds me of a case I had one time. I had a little boy that stole a bicycle from somebody, and I had him in juvenile court. Of course, he was scared anyway to be in juvenile court. And I asked him, what if someone stole your bicycle? And the boy started to cry. And so I thought, man, that's pretty effective. So, you know, it's one of those kind of things where you personalize some of this and you try to get people to think in terms of, you know, good things and politeness and sharing and kindness. And just those are like the anti-juvenile delinquency, because people care about other people, even as little children, and they start to see that crime and gangs and all these things are not the way to live. And so when you're approaching things as a whole broader approach to improving lives with the Head Start program and with this nursing visits in the home, then it helps children to develop what we might say is a normal lifestyle. You know, what are norms, and you know, what is the right way to live, and different things like that. So, you know, basically what I'm talking to you about is drawn from some information in your textbook, chapters 3 and 4. There is an article in there on preventing juvenile delinquency, early intervention, and comprehensiveness. And then there's also a library article that's available under Module 2, which is Prevention and Intervention Programs for Juvenile Offenders. So you want to look at both of those things. Both have really good contributions to understanding of our class. The other thing I wanted to talk to you just a little bit about, something I learned a long time ago in my master's program in criminal justice, and that is a thing called high scope. And you can just Google on that, just go to high scope. It still exists. It started in the mid-60s, around 1964. It was in Ypsilanti, Michigan, and Ann Arbor. Eastern Michigan was involved, University, and also the University of Michigan. And so basically, High Scope has a program called the Perry Preschool Program. And if you would look at it, this whole thing was designed just for enriching young children, trying to help children, especially poor children, single mothers, children, to have a more enriching lifestyle, a better life. And it's funny because they didn't even think about crime. But what they found after following in a longitudinal study their graduates from this little preschool program was that these children had very good lives. I mean, they had lives where they were free from crime, even free from divorce. You know, they lived in nuclear families and had jobs and paid their own way, and just a lot of good things that all were like anti-crime. I mean, the things that they did were the things that normal people do that are not criminals. And so this was my first exposure to these prevention programs. Prevention programs are what we want to focus on as being the real solution to this delinquency problem that we know is so pervasive. So take a look at this. Feel free to ask any questions. A big thing to consider is that we are working on journal articles this week, and there is no discussion in Module 2. So take a look at all the material, ask any questions in the general discussion board area, and then just let us know if you're having some specific problems. Send me an email at pdawalt@snhu.edu. It's a pleasure working with you. I hope that you gained something from this module. It's one of my favorites. So let's talk, and I'll see y'all later.